having a long-term Hey folks, it's Carrie from Pretty Neat. Thanks for joining me. So today I want to address a topic that I get asked about a lot. This is probably one of the biggest challenges that most of us face when it comes to organizing the stuff in our homes, and that is paperwork. What do we do with all of the paperwork that we have coming in? How do we keep it under control? How do we set up a system for organizing it? And even though we've moved to a much more digital world, it seems like paperwork still continues to be a problem. And it certainly is my biggest challenge when it comes to organizing. I have found that the key to keeping paperwork under control is setting up some systems for how to handle that paperwork as it enters your home. The important thing to keep in mind about paperwork is that there are different categories of paperwork, and each type is going to need to be handled a little bit differently. The different categories of paperwork that you will probably need to deal with in your home are active or in-process paperwork, short-term filing, long-term filing, and forever filing. The first type of paperwork that we have to deal with is paperwork that requires some kind of action on our part, or it's going to be in process for a period of time. So this might include bills that need to be paid, maybe invitations to an event that you need to hang on to, tickets to a concert, maybe a birthday card that needs to be sent, anything that has time-specific deadlines attached to it. This active paperwork or paperwork that's in process, it needs to be in a place where you are going to remember to address it. So this is going to vary person to person. If you are the type of person who needs to see things in order to remember to address them, then putting them away in a filing cabinet is probably not the best option. So I keep a tray near my desk for paperwork that needs some kind of direct action, and it needs to be done as soon as possible. But I also keep a folder that I just have labeled coming up, and this contains the things that are time dependent that I'm going to need in the near future, but I don't need to address them right away. So some examples of this might be an invitation to an event, and it has some information on it that I will need to refer to when that event comes around. This might also include information about a doctor's appointment, and there might be some instructions that you need to refer to at the time of the appointment, or directions on where to go for that appointment, but you're not going to actually need that information until the day of the appointment. So the coming up folder works in conjunction with your calendar, whatever type of calendar you use, whether it's paper or digital. When you have an appointment and you have some paperwork that is attached to that appointment, the appointment goes in your calendar and that paperwork goes in the coming up folder. So you always know where those things are when the appointment rolls around. I find this works a lot better for most people than something like a bulletin board or sticking things on the fridge. That just creates visual clutter in your home. Most of us are trying to reduce our clutter. And I also find that things sometimes get forgotten when they're placed on a bulletin board. The things on there kind of become part of the scenery after a while, and we forget that they are even there. The second type of paperwork that you probably have to deal with in your home is what I would call short-term filing. So these include things like receipts, bank statements, credit card statements, canceled checks, anything that you might need to refer to in the next couple of months, but probably not much beyond that. So for this type of paperwork, the short-term filing items, I like to set up 12 monthly folders to hold these things. I love this system because it's kind of self-cleaning. The way this works is, as you receive this type of paperwork, these things that you want to keep for a little while, you're going to put them in that September folder. And you're going to continue doing this for the next 12 months. Now, next year, when September rolls around again, I'm going to receive some kind of paperwork that I need to put in the September folder. But when I open it up, I'm going to see last year's stuff still in there. So I would just do a quick flip through last year's paperwork, see if there's anything in there that I might want to keep. For the most part, all of the stuff that's in there can usually just go directly in the recycling bin. And then I empty it out, and then I start filing the next year's paperwork in that folder. So I love this system because each month as I open up the folder to put something in, I'm reminded, oh yeah, I need to clean out the stuff from last year. Most of the stuff in these folders you probably don't need to keep for a full 12 months, but you have it just in case. And so if you realize that you need to return something or you need to refer to that old bank statement, you know where to find it. It's in the appropriate month, but it's not being put in a system that's never getting cleaned out. The third category of paperwork that you probably need to deal with is what I call long-term filing. These are things that you will probably need to keep for more than 1 year. So this includes things like insurance policies, auto repair records, home repair records, receipts for big purchases, any type of records for investments. If you keep manuals or guarantees for the products in your home, these would also be considered long-term filing items. For long-term filing, I like to set up a 2-level system in a filing cabinet or a file box. And the 2-level system is really easy to use. It's if you think about your computer, it's basically having folders and then subfolders within those. I like to use hanging files that have this plastic tab. These come with the files when you purchase them. And these plastic tabs on the hanging files serve as the higher level category of files. I try to keep the higher level categories to just a few, maybe 5 to 10 for most people works well. These are really the big picture categories. So think about, like, you might have a section for home or for personal. You might have a section for finance or health. Behind these, you're going to have all your smaller files for each individual thing within that category. So for example, you might have in your finance big picture category individual files for each bank account or each investment that you have. The smaller individual files, I use just basic manila folders for these. These are very inexpensive products for filing. And these usually come in this 1/3 cut, which means that some of the folders in the pack have the tab at the left, some have the tab at the right, and some have the tab in the center. I actually prefer in my filing cabinet to use what I call straight line filing. That just means all of the folders use just one type of tab. So I prefer to use the left side tabbed folders for all of my files in the cabinet. The idea behind the staggered tabs on the folders is that you can look and see 3 different ones at the same time, and I understand the utility of that. But what I find confusing is that when I'm looking for something in my filing cabinet, I have to scan across those 3 different positions in the cabinet. I prefer to just be able to look down this one line of files. They're all in the same position, and it just, for me, in my brain, it makes it a little bit easier to find things. So you might try doing this. This doesn't mean that you have to throw out 2/3 of the folders that come in the package though. I use the left side filing in my cabinets. I take the folders that have the right hand tab and I just turn them inside out, and then they become a left tab folder. I recommend using this combination of hanging files and the tabbed manila folders. It just allows your system to expand and to be made smaller as your needs change and as your paperwork changes. The big picture sections that are labeled at the hanging files can be larger or smaller just by adding additional hanging files behind that big picture tab and by using additional manila folders there. One of the issues with your long-term files is that they can become a dead zone for paperwork where things are filed in there to never be seen again. And over the course of years, you will find that your files just get overstuffed and there's a bunch of things in there that you really don't need anymore. It has been estimated that about 80% of the things we file, we never look at again. So I would say be selective about the things that you do place in your long-term filing. And I also recommend doing a flip through those files at least one time a year. Just take a quick pass through and pull out anything that is out of date, that is no longer relevant, maybe an account that was closed or a vehicle that you no longer own. And if you can, just toss or shred that paperwork. Any type of system that you set up is going to require some level of maintenance. And for most people, going through about once a year, even to do a quick flip and pull out the things that are no longer relevant, is enough to keep that system from getting out of hand. The final category of paperwork that all of us have to keep is what I would call forever filing. This is paperwork that is not impossible to replace, but it's going to be a real pain in the butt to replace it. So you want to keep it somewhere safe, and you, for the most part, are going to need to keep it for your entire life. Keeping it somewhere where it's not going to get damaged, where you know where to find it if you need it, is really important. I recommend getting a fire safe box for this. They come in different sizes. I have a pretty small one, and this just allows me some peace of mind to keep these forever filing items. I know where they are if I need them, and in the case of an emergency and there was a fire in my home, I know that those things would be protected. Some examples of things that you should keep in your forever filing are Social Security cards, passports, any type of legal documents like divorce papers, adoption papers, the deed to your home, titles to your vehicles, military records, birth certificates. All of these should be kept permanently for every person in your home. And like I said, I would recommend a fire safe box of some sort to keep these things. Keeping them locked up is probably a good idea as well, just for security reasons. So just to review, when you're setting up systems in your home to deal with paperwork, consider these 4 different categories of paperwork: the active or in-process paperwork, short-term filing, long-term filing, and forever filing, and set up a separate system for each type. And my recommendation was for the short-term paperwork to have maybe an open tray somewhere to remind you visually to take care of those things, as well as having a spot for those things that are coming up, events that are happening in the near future, and having a home for those items. For the short-term filing, I recommend 12 monthly folders that you will revisit each month when you have to add something to them, and you will be reminded to clean out last year's stuff from them. Having a space for long-term filing, which would include that 2-level system of hanging folders and the manila folders. And like I said, if you want to take it to the next level, you can use just one single positioned tabs in your drawer to make it a little cleaner and a little easier to locate the file that you need. And finally, you need some place to keep those forever filing items, those legal documents and birth certificates and things that are hard to replace. And consider placing those in a fire safe box and someplace that has a lock. So I hope those tips about keeping paperwork under control were helpful for you. If they were, please hit the like button. It really helps my channel out. And don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to be sharing more information here about making your home the best it can be and keeping it organized and decluttered. Talk to you soon.